So thank you for the invitation. I have to say that I already knew EARA, so probably I'm the only one from the panel. So I have a scientific background, but I never worked with animals before, and it was really a challenge to start doing a postdoc in science communication, and precisely in this topic that is a very sensitive topic. So today I'm going to tell you, some things that we have done and how we can communicate animal research. And by now you all have heard about this transparency agreement on animal research that was signed by several research centers and universities here in Portugal. But I think that this agreement is probably a formalization of a situation, because already many institutes and many scientists were being open about animal research. So this agreement, I think it was to formalize the situation and perhaps also to encourage other researchers and other institutions to be more open on how to communicate animal research. And this agreement, it has 4 commitments, or it invite us to follow these 4 commitments. The first one is that we will be clear about when, how, and why we use animals in research. We will enhance our communications with the media and the public about our research using animals, and more specifically, we will be proactive in providing opportunities to the public for the public to find out about research using animals. And we will report on progress annually and share our experience. So at the Instituto Gulbenkian de Ciência, I think this was a very natural step to take to sign this agreement, because we have been thinking about this topic and we have been exploring how we are doing we can communicate animal research for quite some time, so at least for 10 years now. But for those of you who don't know, let me just very briefly tell you that the Gulbenkian Institute of Science, or Instituto Gulbenkian de Ciência, so IGC, so it's a research center that is dedicated to biological and biomedical research. We also train scientists, and we have also a dedicated program with and for society. And within our research program, our research program is multidisciplinary, meaning that our scientists address their scientific questions using different systems and models, and these might be in vitro models, in silico models, but also model organisms, including vertebrates. Okay? So if we go back to 2009, 2010, and if we think on what was the scenario here in Portugal, there were no cases of animal activism against animal research, but at that time there was a plan to build a big animal house facility in Azambuja. I'm sure many of you remember this plan, and at that time there were some buzz in the society regarding this construction, and there were a few demonstrations with about 50 people, and an online petition against the construction of this animal facility. At the end, this plan didn't go ahead. I'm not sure what was the reason for the promoters to drop out this idea. So at the Institute, I would like to say that something quite relevant happened in this year of 2009. It was establishment of the IGC Ethics Committee. And why am I bringing this topic here? For sure, you all know that Ethics Committee is important for many reasons, but for the purpose of this communication, I would like to highlight that having an Ethics Committee gave us the confidence that the animal research that we were conducting was at a very high level. It fulfilled all the standards that it should. And this also gave us the awareness that we were in a very comfortable position to start talking about animal research if we wanted to. So that was really the question. Should we communicate animal research or not. And when we were talking to some scientists back then, there were some scientists that were telling us, are you crazy? Why are you going to start talking about this topic? This is not an issue here in Portugal. I mean, there are so many cases in Europe, in the US, of activism, and in Portugal we are so blessed because we don't have this problem. So why are you wanting to start talking about it? Maybe it will just bring activists to our doors. But also we had other scientists saying that, you know, this is a problem everywhere. So sooner or later, it might also come to our doors, and we should be prepared. So we decided to talk to some organizations that had already experienced animal activism and to learn how they have dealt with the situation. And we went to the UK. And we talked to RSPCA, NC3Rs, and the Understanding Animal Research, and all these organizations told us that it was better to be open, to be transparent, and to talk about animal research than to hide it. Because it was always better to be proactive than to be reactive. When we are proactive, we have the time to plan what things we want to say. We have the time to structure a communication plan. When we are reactive, we don't have this time because we just have to respond immediately to something most of the times horrible that is happening to us, and so we really don't have the time to think and to plan things carefully. So we were thinking that we wanted to bring animal research to the public arena, and for that we needed to have the scientific community on board. I mean, we needed to know if they wanted this or not, and for that reason we conducted a survey to the scientific community trying to address their attitudes towards animal research. And so 577 scientists, either working or not with animals, from 45 life science research institutes across Portugal, answered to this survey. And among the many different questions that we had there, we also had some questions about communication. And one of the questions was if they consider important to communicate animal research or not. And 90% of the respondents said yes. And then when we asked those scientists that were already working with animals if they had already talked about animal research or not with the public, so 50% said yes, 50% said no. And we further asked them if they thought that they could benefit from further support from their institution to help them communicating. And curiously, at least for us, only 15% said that they would benefit from this support. So this survey, I think it gave us a green light to go ahead with this communication plan. So if we think on how we can communicate animal research, we can use several different channels. These are just a few examples. So we can put information on websites, we can send information to the press, we can talk to students, so do some schools outreach, we can have public meetings, produce flyers, establish dialogues, open the Animal House facility, and put some posts on social media or talk in science coffee. So we can use as many different communication channels as possible. So what actions did the IGC take? And you will see that most of these actions are really very similar to the commitments that the Transparency Agreement are now inviting us to do. So the first thing that we did was we wrote a statement on animal research, and we put it on the websites to make it very clear that we were using it and why we were using it. And the statement started with a context on biomedical research, how the biomedical research is done, then why do scientists use model organisms and animals? Then we also talk about 3 Rs, the legislation that exists in Portugal and in Europe, that the IGC has an ethics committee, and that all work done with animals is supervised by national authorities. And as I said, scientists play a really key role in the scientific process and also in any communication that we want to establish. So for us it was very important also to have our scientists prepare, or at least more aware of some problems that they could meet when they would start talking about animal research. And therefore we decided to include a module on communication in our laboratory animal science courses. And in this model, we talk about the attitudes of the society, we talk about animal rights movements and their actions, some arguments in favor and against animal research, the transparency agreement, and then some communication tips that they can follow, or at least that they can be more aware of. Also, we started to, not really started, I think we have always been doing this, but now it was being more conscious every time that we were doing this, that every time that a research paper was coming out and we wanted to do a press release about that paper, we would publicly acknowledge in that press release that that work involved animals, and sometimes we even included a picture of the animal model that was used. We also have been talking to students, and this can be done in commemorative days such as the Immunology Day. And in this case it's very easy because we are already talking about a very specific area of science, so it's very easy to give examples on how animals are used for these specific studies. But we also go to schools and we receive schools visits at the IGC, and we, for instance, this month we already gave 2 talks for schools about the use of animals in science and what are all the rules, how we do things at the IGC, and about the 3 Rs. Also, we produced a couple of multimedia resources, so 2 animations. And the idea for these animations was to be able to communicate with young children. So these animations, we create them thinking on children from 6 to 12 years old. And it's not that the animation starts like, so scientists are using animals in their research. No, we are putting things into context, into perspective. The first animation, Me and My Body, is, I don't know if I have here a pointer because, oopsie daisy. What have I done? So I didn't find the pointer. Is this one? Yeah. So the first animation, Me and My Body, is an animation that talks about different types of cells that we have in our organism, and now they are relevant to form the different organs and different functions that each organ has. And from that point, we ask, how do scientists know all this information? It is because they do many different studies, and some of these studies are conducted with animals, and from there we explain a little bit. The other video, The Amazing World of Living Things, it talks about evolution, and after explaining that we all come from a common ancestor, then we say that's why scientists use different model organisms in their studies, because we share so many common features all over nature. So both resources are available on YouTube in our channel. And then we have also been taking this theme to some public events that we are organizing. The IGC Open Days is one of these, I think, iconic events. It takes place every 2 years at the IGC, and the purpose of this event is to open doors to the local community, to families that want to know more about the science that we are doing there. And we have many different activities running at this day. And one of the activities that we have is a room or a marquee that we called Top Models. And in this activity, we are showing all the model organisms that we are working with, from plants to bacteria to yeast to zebrafish to frogs and mice. And per edition, we receive around 500 people, sometimes more, sometimes less. And this activity is an activity that is always a very, very busy activity. It has always many people there. And when we ask people at the end of the day what were the activities that they enjoyed more, this one is the one that they mention more often as their favorite. Okay. But this event, as I was saying, it's for families and communities. More specifically, it's for families and communities that perhaps already have an interest in science, because if they don't have this interest, they don't go to this type of events. But the IGC also participates in other public events that are not really targeting people that are already interested in science. And as an example, we have the Nós Alive Music Festival. So at Nós Alive Music Festival, usually we have people from all over the world going there, some like scientists, some like science, some never even thought about it. And last year, we decided to organize an activity there that was a dark room. The idea was to show fluorescence, luminescence, and like a magical world of science that most people never meet, don't know. And for that, we were also talking about model organisms and why are we using animals. So it's in Portuguese, but if you can see over here, in one of the walls, we had some explanations about model organisms there. And when we were preparing this activity, we thought this is a risk. It's not this can be. This is a risk because we don't know what's going to happen. It can go very well, it can go very wrong, but it went very well. So some people were not that comfortable with animal research. Some specifically said that I'm against, but they listened to the explanations, and we are not here to convince anyone to change their opinions, but at least I think they listened and they, respected us. So at least that. The things that I've been showing you have been more planned actions, having always in mind that we want to talk about animal research, but you can also talk about animal research in a very natural way. And I'm going to give you an example of something that just happened last Sunday. So last Sunday, we had the first concert of a new series that the Gulbenkian Music is starting. And in these concerts, they are inviting one scientist from Instituto Gulbenkian de Ciência to go there and to talk for 5 minutes about science and about research. And last Sunday, Monica, she's very, very small over here, so you cannot see, but Monica Ptingurdir, that is our director, she went there and she was talking about science, and she was presenting the science that we are doing at the IGC, and in a very natural way, she was saying that at the IGC we are also doing research with animals, we are doing research with mice, we are doing research with zebrafish, even because then afterwards she was going to show many images and videos of these models. But it was not something that we had previously planned, or you should talk about animals. No, it was something that just naturally came out. It's something that we are doing, so we don't need to hide it. So I'm really finishing. This is my last slide. In my opinion, it is not that difficult to be open about animal research, and there are many things that we can do. I completely understand the some concerns that Susanna and Sarah has just mentioned, and I think that perhaps being open doesn't mean that we tell exactly everything. I mean, being open is to openly talk about it, but the same thing as you are open about your life, you probably are not going to tell all the details of your life to someone you are just meeting now, right? So there are several levels of being open, and I don't know, I think, at least for now, and I'm sure we still have a long way to do, but I think that the IGC has been trying to participate in this process of being open, and we have been managed to do so until now. So thank you so much.